Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Overcoming series. In today's episode, I want to talk about overcoming core shame and low self-esteem. So core shame is feeling fundamentally or inherently flawed, as if there's something wrong with you. You have this shame within you that makes you feel like you're not good enough and you're not worthy. It impacts your self-esteem and the way that you view yourself. You navigate your adult life with low self-esteem, doing certain things like people-pleasing, feeling guilty, being a perfectionist, connecting with unhealthy people. And I'm very passionate about this topic because I literally navigated life with core shame for so long, and it showed up in so many different aspects. How I felt about myself, the things that I dealt with, put up with, the relationships that I got into. When I started to work through that, I ended up having a healthier relationship with myself. Usually, core shame is developed within your childhood when you've had negative attachment experiences, when you faced criticism, rejection, abandonment, when you felt unworthy and not good enough. And that could be certain experiences with family members. It could be certain experiences with your parents that kind of establish that. In our childhood, we have our basic needs that we need our parents to kind of fulfill, right? And part of those needs is our emotional needs as well. And that could mean like simply having a shoulder to cry on, having someone to talk to, having someone to validate your emotions and your feelings. So let's say, for example, within your childhood, you're feeling sad or upset about something, or you're just not happy, or you want to share a positive experience, like something happened in school, for example. And then you go to your parent who you're supposed to have a positive and healthy attachment with, and they reject you. They impact your ability to form a healthy bond and connection with them. As a child, it's easy to personalize certain things. It's easy to personalize rejection, abandonment, when a parent doesn't want to listen to you, when a parent criticizes you, ignores you, neglects you. When you have those unhealthy attachment experiences, you will personalize those things. And then in turn, that leads to you having a core shame in which you feel like something's wrong with you. And one thing I want to remind you is that there is nothing wrong with you. It's just what you feel within yourself, and that can be worked through. Those are really pinnacle and important moments within our development years as children, which is why I always emphasize when people want to have children, you have to be intentional about it, because you have to be intentional about the smallest things that could make a child feel rejected. A healthy self-esteem and a healthy sense of self is usually developed throughout our childhood into adulthood. And so when we have those negative experiences, abandonment, rejection, feeling unworthy, then how are we able to create a healthy sense of self going forward and develop a healthy sense of self? I spent a lot of years feeling fundamentally flawed, like something was wrong with me. I felt like I couldn't do anything right, or I felt like I had to prove myself to prove that I'm worthy, that there's more to me, that I'm not flawed. And then I would be constantly triggered when that wasn't validated by someone else. My experiences were more along the lines of abandonment, rejection, and criticism, where I just felt abandoned when my needs weren't met, my emotional needs especially, wanting someone to speak to and having no one available to actually pour my heart out or say the things that were bothering me, but also just not being heard and not listened to. When I would say things that were upsetting me and bothering me, nothing was changing. And so that made me feel like, oh, so am I not good enough for you to change? And then I feel like that's what happens sometimes with our relationships with our parents, is that we feel like, why are we not enough for them to change? And then you'll notice that when you get into relationships, that you end up being with someone where you kind of want them to change, you're trying to guide them and help them change so that they can be good enough for you, so that you can feel worthy within yourself. When you see similarities such as they're not changing and they're not changing their ways or doing right by you, you personalize it and think it's who you think, and then you start to feel like, why am I not good enough for you to change? But the truth is, you are good enough. It's just that person not the right one for you. That person is just a reflection of the things that you didn't get within your childhood. That person's a reflection of the trauma that you experienced within your childhood. So it's not that you're fundamentally flawed or that there's something wrong with you. And one thing on that, that's a whole different topic anyways, but like wanting someone to change for you is never is never a good idea. So that's in terms of relationships, but also just how I felt about myself is that I just always felt like I had to prove myself. I just never really felt good enough. I would achieve so many different things, but it almost felt like I was in constant battle of trying to prove myself to God knows who. Like, it was like, who am I actually trying to prove some things to? And that's just how I felt, because I just felt like I had to. Sometimes it was so intense because I'm a perfectionist as well, and I feel like my perfectionism comes from this core shame. A lot of times when you're a perfectionist, it's because you want to feel worthy, you want to feel valuable, you want to feel like you're adding value. So you want to do the best that you can to validate that feeling. You want everything to be perfect. You want everything to be right. You're the person who would make sure that everything's in place and everything's in order, yet you still feel dissatisfied and unhappy. You can be a high achiever where you're trying to achieve the best and do the best, and you are actually doing really well, but then something within you feels empty. and still doesn't feel good enough. You still don't feel satisfied with yourself. You still don't feel satisfied with your experience and what you've done and achieved, because you feel fundamentally flawed. So there's nothing that you can do that can change that feeling until you work through that core shame that you have and where it came from, where it stemmed from, who implanted that into you, what experiences impacted your sense of self. Because for me, my perfectionism was so strong that I would literally physically and emotionally feel so upset and miserable and unhappy when things weren't going right, because it's almost as if I thought that if this didn't go right, or things aren't going right, or I can't achieve this or do this, then that means something about me. It means something about who I am as a person and my ability to do certain things. That was a painful realization, because it just started making me feel like there was nothing that I could do that was right. I wouldn't even give myself grace. I wouldn't even give myself compassion when I made mistakes, because it would just, those mistakes reminded me of why I don't feel worthy. And for years, I had this strong belief that I'm not worthy of love, that things won't go right for me, or I won't get the things that I want because I'm just not worthy. And it's that core shame that I had, and I was navigating life like that, which caused me to feel the way that I did, which caused me to people please or do things outside of myself, or things that were not aligned with who I am and the values that I believed I set for myself. Staying in toxic friendships, staying in toxic relationships, not setting boundaries, allowing people to just come in and out your life and do anything or wreak havoc, and not setting the necessary boundaries that you need, because those boundaries are a reflection of your sense of self and your self-worth. So when we lack self-worth, we do find it difficult to set those boundaries. Also, not setting those boundaries are also people pleasing as well, because when you set those boundaries, you realize that a lot of people are not happy with the boundaries that you're setting, because it means that they're unable to continue their negative behavior that's impacting you. But then it all boils down to that sense of self and how you feel within yourself. And setting boundaries can be difficult, but when you have a high sense of self, when you do believe you're worthy and you don't feel like you're fundamentally flawed, then it will be easier for you to set those boundaries, or to say no to certain things, or yes to certain things. Because let's just flip the coin here as well. When you do feel like you're fundamentally flawed and you don't feel worthy and you have this core shame, that can also stop you from gaining opportunities that are good for you, from getting into relationships that are good for you, meeting people that are good for you, doing things that are good for you. So it's hard for you to say yes and accept those things into your life and believe that you truly deserve that. It's like you allow yourself to go through all the traumatic events, to go through the difficult experiences, to have the difficult relationships, to have the codependent friendships or relationships, and people please and not set boundaries, or have people walk all over you, because it's like you're telling yourself, well, that's all I'm good for, that's what I'm worthy of, so why not accept those things? And that's where we're going wrong, and that's where that healing and that understanding and awareness needs to come from, because you can end up living a life that is so far removed from who you are and what you deserve, and that's so unhealthy for you, because then you'd never get the things that you want. It's about having a fruitful and joyful life in which you're able to get the things that you want, or able to experience a life that is aligned with who you are. So for me, one way for me to work through that core shame was 100% having that awareness and understanding of how something kind of grew, the root, the cause, and then seeing what experiences kind of grew along the time that established and solidified that core shame within you as well. A lot of the things that happen within our adulthood now are a direct reflection of some of the things that happened within our childhood. So it's gaining that sense of awareness, and also giving yourself that self-compassion to understand that whatever you've experienced, whatever you've accepted, allowed, whatever anyone said to you, the things that you've done, you are still deserving of love and experiences. You're still deserving of a healthy life that is aligned with who you are. It doesn't matter about whatever mistakes you've made. You deserve compassion and you deserve grace. And you have to remind yourself of that and do the little things like keeping promises to yourself, doing affirmations, journal prompts, reading healing books, or things that can give you a sense of awareness and guide you through your healing process. It's doing the little things, because it's the little things that can help you to kind of unravel that core shame. And I like the fact that it's called core shame, because core is really in deep, like it's your core being that feels this shame. So it's time to kind of get to the core root of those things so that you can reveal who you truly are and what you really want and what you're deserving of. For me, self-compassion was a big part of that for me, 100%, because I knew that for a long time I was navigating with my core shame, and so that was a direct reflection of my actions and some of my experiences, and so I had to forgive myself for that, and I had to accept that it's just my core shame. It was accepting that I didn't know what I know now, that now that I've worked through things and done the necessary work that I needed to do, that I'm in a better space, that I'm having a healthier relationship with myself, that I'm letting go of this core shame, and just reminding yourself as often as you can that you are worthy. The amazing thing about life is that when we start to have fruitful experiences, and when we start to, you know, have loving experiences and meeting people that are more aligned with us, it does remind us that we are worthy. Allows us to tap into ourselves and then show up in the world, which attracts people who are like us, who want to do right by us, and also just to have opportunities that reflect that. And any narratives or things that people fed to you, any criticism that people told you, is a reflection of themselves. It's a reflection of who they are. They've just put those things onto you. Those negative things that people say about you just says a lot about them and who they are and how they feel within themselves. It's also remembering not to personalize other people and their own core shame. And it's easier said than done, of course. Putting that in your conscious mind that, you know, when these people talk to you in certain ways, or nah, this has nothing to do with me. It's about them and the relationship that they have with themselves. I just need to focus on the relationship that I have with myself, strengthening and developing my relationship with myself, creating a healthy relationship with myself, having a healthy experience with myself, to know that this person, when this person comes around me or wants to talk to me in a negative way, who wants to project their negativity onto me, I can be like, this has nothing to do with me. But when you work through that core shame, it's easy for you to spot someone who's coming into your life to pick at you. And a lot of people that come into your life to pick at you, a lot of the times it's because there's characteristic traits within yourself that they want or feel intimidated by. But when you do have core shame and you navigate life with core shame, it is easy for you to pick up and attract those types of people who project, who want to pick at you. So that's why it's so important to be able to work through your core shame and identify your core shame and where it stemmed from. It's something that can be worked through. If you can afford therapy, if you can do it for free, do certain aspects. And even if you can't afford therapy, doing the little things as well. The little things is so important. It's so key to your healing and to your self-understanding. Together we'll overcome core shame. Thank you for watching another episode of my Overcoming series, and I will see you in my next episode.